Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Make It Known with Mal. This is the quick intro that will be at the beginning of all four of the four Quadrant series episodes, and it is just me explaining a little bit about why I did this series and what to expect. So firstly, I did this series because we are in a very interesting time here in America, and I just wanted to do my part in helping and also teaching and learning and just getting all the information that we can so we can make educated decisions coming up in November or even in primaries that are still happening and such. Part of what I have always wanted to do and part of what Making It with Mal strives to do is just to have conversations, have difficult conversations as well. So that is why I got a wide range, well, the four quadrants of ideologies. I'm sure there's some in the middle here and there, but I got the main four. And the reason why I did that was because I want to be able to talk to and have conversations with people who we might not on a regular basis talk to, or people who don't necessarily agree with us, so we can hear everyone's side and so we can make well-informed decisions. Hopefully you cannot hear my biases. As a human being, I obviously have my own personal beliefs and strong convictions. So hopefully I did a good job at hiding that. I know that some parts I might not have, but hopefully I did. And my heart is for you to just truly make your own decision and to not be influenced by me or the people speaking. I pick people who are in politics, pretty much in their respective ideology quadrants. These people, I wouldn't say they're like complete experts, but they are people who are very knowledgeable about the ideologies that they are identifying with. So, hello everyone, welcome to Make It Known with Mal. I'm your host Mal, and today is another episode of our Four Quadrants series. I am interviewing today, it is the person who identifies as a conservative. So as always, I'm going to be asking the same questions, and there'll be a pro or against section. And these are I pick people who are involved in politics and who I believed could speak well enough, articulate what I want everyone that's listening to hear about the ideology. So without further ado, here is someone you've already heard before, my friend Shekinah.
Hi guys, thanks for having me back. I love doing stuff like this. Really, it's great.
Yay. Well, I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad that you said yes when I asked you. Okay, so the first question is, just tell us really quickly one more time, like, who you are, and I guess basically like why, or I guess your involvement in politics. You don't have to say like who, like specifically like what you've done, but maybe just talk a little bit about why I would even ask you to do this.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess the long and short of it is I've been involved in politics pretty much since I was in high school, and I've identified as a conservative for about that long. Also, I haven't really switched teams or gone back and forth. Once I made the decision that I was a conservative, that's just what I was, because that's just where my values are. And I got into politics because I just really love my country, and I want every American to feel the importance of what it is to be an American. So that's the TLDR version of who I am.
Love it, love it. Okay, so I guess explain your ideology, like if you can, like how conservatism lines up with your values, and like kind of explain like what you think a conservative is.
Okay, yeah. So generally conservatism cares about the individual's impact on the rest of society, the rest of that nation's society. So we do want to protect individual rights, but we also have no problem with using the state to be able to bring the state more prosperity and to be able to just improve our society. Um, based on, I guess, some moral arbiters too. Like we very much believe in using things like the church to be able to establish a good community. And we encourage charity through those organizations to be able to give back directly to those communities. And yeah, so that's pretty much what conservatism is. We are individualistic to an extent. Um, so we really do just care about the country that we live in, and we want to preserve values such as being pro-life, um, being monogamous, promoting marriage as an institution, things of that nature, just generally trying to make our society a more prosperous place by protecting the principles that have made other societies be so prosperous for so long. So, yeah.
Great answer. Great answer. And like always, I'm gonna try not to put my input as much as I can, but that was a good answer, so I had to say that. So basically, the next one is, how did you arrive to? You said in high school is when you got involved, and you haven't been one of those people who switch back and forth. Which I want to say that's not necessarily a bad thing if you do switch back and forth. Just have your reasons, and I would start looking at yourself if you switch back and forth every 2 or 3 years. But like if at 21 you were this one thing and now you're 35 and you're something else, that's not that crazy.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
So how did you really arrive at agreeing with this? You said something about your values earlier too, so go for it.
Yeah, so I have always kind of been raised with conservative principles, but my family didn't really know how to label those values as being conservative at the time. So I really started getting heavily involved into politics around the 2012 election. And we would have these discussions in class about the Republican Democratic parties, and I kind of did my own research on that. And I came to the conclusion that, Republicans historically weren't these like evil demagogues that try to preserve the institution of racism and slavery and all that. So once I debunked that, then I kind of got further and further into that kind of frame of thinking. But though I didn't switch back and forth between like party lines, I will say I have switched between the degrees of conservatism that I hold, because I would say when I was in high school, I was just like a mainstream Republican. Like I just kind of held like mainstream Republican views, which is something different from like true conservatism. So I would say after my personal experiences of working on Capitol Hill and interning at the Heritage Foundation, I'm a much stronger conservative than like a mainstream Republican these days. So, yeah.
I like that distinction. Also, I do want to say on top of that too, that's okay too to slide back and forth. I think, especially people who are in politics, I think a lot of us have slid. I know slided is not it. We've slid.
Yeah, I think slid is
on. Yeah, we've slid on the scale, and I know I myself have dabbled in even libertarianism. Just when you're developing your beliefs and things like that, these are some of the type of things that generally come up, but then eventually you do kind of settle in something that aligns with your values. So next question is, why do you think that conservatism is best for America, or do you think it is?
Well, yeah, yeah, I think that conservatism is the best ideology to strengthen the country, because American conservatism is very unique in the face of the rest of the world too. There are different party dynamics in different countries that you go to, in different Western countries too. But I think American conservatism is unique because we have such a unique history, and we were built from pretty much being a rebellious nation against Britain. And we like the story of America is amazing. And I think conservatism really like true conservatism puts those values of the founding at the forefront and constantly works to preserve those things. Um, so like you get these ideas of nationalism and patriotism in there. And I guess these days I'm much more of a nationalist than I was in the very beginning, because part of that nationalism is believing that America was a unique country to begin with, and that the foundations of this country wasn't rooted in evil, that that you believe that America is a strong force in the world, and a world without an America would be a much different, much more darker place, I feel. So, yeah.
I do have a quick question. Can you talk about the difference between a nationalist and a patriot? Because honestly, I don't know. That's just a question for me as well.
Okay, yeah. So, a nationalist, well, I guess nationalism, like patriotism complements nationalism. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Okay.
So, like, you can be a patriot and, like, just generally love for your country, but nationalism is not only a connection to the country, but it's to the land and it's to the people that you share the country with. So,
Okay.
right, exactly. So, like, for example, like I guess a lot of people are generally pro like legal immigration, but like a nationalist will be like, well, we have to limit all kinds of immigration because immigration as a whole can turn into a net negative for the Americans are all already living here. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. That was a really good explanation. Um, all right. So then the next question is, now how do we get people on board with your ideology? Like, how do we get people to agree with it? What are some things that you think should be done?
Well, I think the first thing that needs to be done is that we need to be able to teach like true American history to to Americans, to make sure that they have a love for this country, because I don't think you can really come to the conclusion of being a conservative if you don't love America. If you don't have a good understanding of the founding of the country and everything. So, and that's like really disturbing to see on college campuses, because it's almost as if these professors or like teachers in public school, it's almost like they have a vested interest in making sure that people don't like the country. And it's really weird to see so many young people our age so invested into fundamentally changing the country that they're able to prosper in. So
Mm-hmm.
I think first and foremost, we have to teach a true understanding of the American founding and foster a new respect for the founding fathers and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, because those things are central to be able to take the country forward.
Good answer. Good answer. Next question is, how do we get people to vote, specifically millennials? Now, you did talk a little bit about, well, no, your whole episode was basically about voting earlier. So you can repeat some stuff if you want, or if you have some more ideas, but specifically, how do we get millennials to vote? And then I guess how to get millennials to vote in this way.
Well, I guess to reiterate from my past episode, it's really to find specific issues that millennials are generally very passionate about. And I think one of those issues right now is student loan debt. Um, and to be honest with you, I don't really like. I'm not super into economic legislation or anything. I know
I
that
feel you on that.
I know that just forgiving debt outright is generally not a good thing to do. So, but yeah, but I mean, there are other issues that millennials also find interesting. That's just one of many, but finding issues that millennials generally do care about, and having these open discussions and encouraging them to find candidates that support their specific issue that they're going for, or whatever, like that would be, I think that would be best. Just try and find an issue that you care about. Once you find an issue that you care about, go and seek the person that deals with that issue in a way that you find compelling, and you'll be more active in that process. Bernie Sanders actually did a really good job with engaging millennials and gathering donations from them. I think the average donation on his campaign given by like a regular person was like $20, $27 or something like that.
Oh wow, that's
So
pretty good.
yeah. So just building up a coalition like that, saying, hey, like you don't have to be like a big rich donor to be able to get your voice heard and to help me with my campaign. Like making the average person feel as though they're making a difference, that they're making a big difference to a campaign, that by itself helps a lot too. Um and as well as working on like local campaigns or like congressional campaigns, that helps also. But yeah, and social media is another tool also to be able to drive home the issues that millennials feel as though are important. So
Good. Good. Okay, so you kind of sort of talks about this, but I guess maybe talk a little bit more in depth. Why should anyone care about politics and about conservative politics? Like, does it even matter? Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, you should care about politics in general because politics cares about you. It's like you're like it's pretty much, especially with this coronavirus stuff going on right now. Like we're seeing firsthand, um, state, local, and the federal government trying to work in tandem with each other to lift restrictions or pass more restrictions. This coronavirus response is more political than people realize that it is. And this is something that everybody can kind of get on board and try to understand. Like, there's not a lot of like policy jargon going on. It's just literal, just across the board executive actions going on different levels. So, yeah, and conservatives should, and people should vote conservatively because they're I mean, I feel like in conservative politics right now, it always kind of feels like we're in a war with the left or whatever. But honestly, like to be a conservative is important because like you have an understanding of what the fundamental foundations of this country means to you, to your family, and to the rest of the world as well. And if we don't step up to sort of bring the country together just on the grounds that we're Americans, like first and foremost, then people are going to be able to profit off of the division, off of the just real, just like arbitrary divisions in the country, and be able to change things from the inside out. Um, I really do feel like, I know everybody says it's kind of cliche to say that this is the most important election of our lives and all this, but this is a very important election because what the current president, what President Trump has been able to do in his short time in office with all of the opposition that he's gotten is he's been able to change things culturally. He's been able to give conservatives a backbone and be able to express our opinions in public, like a little bit forcefully too. Like we've been able to be more bold with him at the lead, especially with being pro-life, for example, and withholding funding from
Mm-hmm.
Planned Parenthood. And there are many different avenues in which he has strengthened the conservative movement culturally. And really, that's what we're trying to fight for is these cultural gains. Because if we change the culture, then the politics of this is also going to follow suit with the culture. So there's a lot at stake during this election, and I think conservatives, like if they don't feel comfortable being out in the public square, then they need to be able to translate that into a vote for more conservative representatives in Congress, at the state level, at the local level, and at the federal level also.
Good. Another really good answer. I do like what you said about changing the culture and hopefully I'm not putting too much, like I said, everyone, I really don't want to put like too much of my personal opinion, and I am obviously biased because I do have my own beliefs. But I like what you said about the culture thing, and I think this can apply to all four of the ideologies I'm going to be interviewing. How to make changes in anything is you have to affect the culture. And I think for our culture has been affected by has already been affected by different ideologies, especially subcultures, like in your, like the people you hang out with, things like that, have been affected by different ideologies, and then that's how people make their decisions to vote. That's how people make their decisions on everything. Really, it's, you have to, if you want to get people to be on your team, basically you have to affect the culture. I really like what you said with that. So the next question is, how do we get to our best selves, in the sense of like, how does America become the best America it could be? Like, what do you think we should be doing? Unless we're already there. What do you think on that?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need, as soon as this quarantine is lifted, we need to we, we need to really just start being more involved within our communities. And we need to stop falling for obvious bait that is put in place to just keep dividing us as a people. Like, I'm sure that you've heard the most.
I know what you're thinking of.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard the most recent news of, this tragic shooting that happened in Georgia, and I don't want to derail this podcast to start talking about that. Like, all I'm going to say about that is that is obviously tragic. But at the same time, this incident shouldn't reshape the way that we all look at each other, because if we're living in reality, the reality is tragedies happen, and our response to tragedies happening is a choice. Like, we have a choice to make in the way that we choose how to respond to tragedies like this that happen. So we can either allow it to keep on the divide that's already going on in this country, or we can say we can take this incident and say, this was tragic. However, I understand that most of my countrymen are not like this. I understand that, like, we have to be able to take something for what it is and not apply it to the rest of a certain people or what have you in the country. Because in order to move forward as a country, we have to recognize that we are all Americans. Like, this, like, tragedies like that happen benefit nobody. It's just, that's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to also to add to that, even though this is not what this podcast is about today, but I am going to add to what you said. It's really good if we can take it as an isolated event, even though I know that racism is, it is a thing. I don't not believe in racism, but what has given me so much comfort is seeing so many people speak out, is seeing, of all races, seeing people speak out, everyone talking about showing love, and like, what can we do to make sure we're loving our neighbors, Black, white, Asian, all the other types of races. And I think that thinking about that from that aspect, like, all right, this happened, it was wrong, don't like it, and like you said, this is, like you say, have it as, this is the incident that happened to this person, we stand up against it, but my next door neighbor might not necessarily do that to me, some like that. I'm trying to say it
exactly.
without,
Like, I don't want
yeah,
to, like, in a way, I'm kind of desensitized to stuff like this, because like it because it almost happens in like a pattern. Like, I feel like whenever things are too quiet, whenever nothing has gone on, or whenever we've been locked into our houses for so long and nothing of and nothing sensational comes out in the news, and something like this is released, and then that gets everybody into a panic for the next however many weeks or months or whatever about this one incident, and then everybody forgets about it eventually. So literally, like, uh, we can recognize that these things happen, and to be honest with you, these things aren't going to stop happening. Like, if you're dealing with human beings that are, that are malleable and make mistakes and are able to harbor all kinds of different ideologies, and this is going to happen just because you're dealing with human beings. And we can't allow people, we can't allow the media to be able to just change again culturally and socially how we think of each other because of isolated instances that may happen around the country. At the end of the day, like, this instance doesn't make me feel differently about my country. And it's funny because I got into a conversation with this with a couple of my friends and my parents. A lot of people say when they look at things like this, they're like, "Oh, we have a long way to go." But I'm like, "A long way to go to where?" Where is it that we're going? Because people say that, and I have a different take on this because I'm biracial. I'm half black and I'm half white, so I can't really be all the way in one camp or the other. So when I hear that things like, "Oh, we have a long way to go," I really don't understand what that means, because there is never going to be a point in time where stuff like this doesn't happen. That has never existed in history. That has never existed in a single country. You're going to have crimes like this that happen just as a reality. And I don't believe for a second that in 2020 things are as bad as they were in like 1950. Like, that is just intellectually dishonest, So we can't allow people to sort of trick us into thinking, "Oh no, like, this country has not progressed at all because of this one incident that has gone viral on social media." So yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of baffles me to hear people be like, "Oh, we have a long way to go." I'm like, "A long way to go where?" Like, what is the end goal that you're trying to get to? And it doesn't, and I've not heard a compelling argument yet about any kind of end goal. So yeah.
Yeah, especially because we live in a fallen world. And to wrap up this, because this is very controversial, but that's
Yeah.
okay. I Part of the thing is I do want people to have conversations. To wrap up this particular discussion, I do want to say, as Americans, people who are listening, I know my only people who listen are American. In the little when I look in the back of Anchor and I see who's listening, so as Americans, we need to do our part. Like, you're only responsible for yourself.
Absolutely.
So you do your part in making sure you're not allowing biases or different things to get in the way of how you treat other people. Same with your kids. Make sure you're teaching your kids not to allow biases and to call out things when they're wrong. Because
Right.
if we're all doing our part, you did make a good point. Like, there's no, from the beginning of time, there's always going to be conflict. We live in a fallen world, and that's just a fact of the matter. But if we're all doing our part, we I definitely think we can lessen it. We can keep lessening it, and also too, we can start seeing more justice, because when these things do happen, we do want justice. And if we're all banding together and
Right.
caring about each other and loving each other, we can get to that next spot of seeing justice. But all you can do is be responsible for yourself, and you do your part. Make sure you're doing your part. And parents, make sure you're teaching your kids, because they're watching you. Like,
Right.
yeah. Okay, so I don't even know how we got on that, but I'll just do the next question.
Sure.
So once you talked about this also too in your other one, but you can just reiterate it or give other opinions. What is the best way to get involved with conservatism?
Well, the way that I got involved in conservatism, like, as far as being like an activist and working on campaigns, is I joined College Republicans when I was in college. And through there I just started being more active with the events that we were doing, and just showing that I was present and being able to be willing to learn. I know that, like, sometimes coming up in these movements, you're so passionate and you feel like you know everything about the ideology and everything, but you really don't. Um,
Right.
so just allow yourself to be able to learn new things, actively seek out those internships or those campaign opportunities, even if it's something that's not glamorous. And honestly, most of the time, it's not very glamorous. Whether it's making phone calls or knocking on doors or just like doing a community event with your college Republican, just like cleaning up the park or something, you know, just like be present and always be willing to learn things, because honestly you're never going to get to a point in your activism where you know absolutely everything, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. So last official question, and then we'll go to the pro and against. But who do you think, who's your best presidential pick? It can be the two people who are running, or if you're like, oh, I think I would have preferred X, Y, and Z, you can say
Honestly, Donald Trump is the
that.
best, is the best outcome I could have ever thought of. Well, because, and it's funny because in 2016, in the very beginning of 2016, like before he came down the golden escalators, like I was for Ted Cruz for like the first, I want to say, half of 2016. And it didn't really change for me until I saw what the RNC was kind of doing to try and suppress Donald Trump's support. Like when I saw that
Mhm.
happening, I was like, "Oh, no way. Like I can't be on board with people trying to actually like suppress Donald Trump's vote just because he's getting more people to vote for him. Like that's the nature of the game. Like he's on our side. Why are we trying to bring him down? Like why are there, like, the whole concept of never Trumpers really like have always bothered me, you know? But I mean, now that we're like almost 4 years into this presidency and seeing the gains that he's been able to make, not only for the country, but for conservatives and for the conservative movement, Donald Trump is hands down the best thing that I could have ever dreamed of to happen right now. And I can't wait to vote for him again in November, honestly.
You are very passionate, and I like it. I like hearing the passion.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're gonna go into the pro or against, and in this segment, I'm just gonna say issues, and you just say pro or against, and then if there's like an issue, like I'll just use an example. If I say like hugging trees for 30 minutes, and you say pro, and you're like, well, I want to explain. You can do that. If you have like a really weird explanation or something, that's fine. But I would like to just pro or against it. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Abortion.
Against.
Legalization of marijuana. Sorry, I say that
Oh.
to be funny, and then I accidentally said it.
I'm gonna, okay. I'm gonna say against. I'm just gonna say against, and that I'm just gonna,
If you really want to explain, you can.
okay. Well, okay. I'm against, I'm against the federal legalization of marijuana. If states want to do it on a state by state basis, that's fine. But I'm generally against the federal legalization of marijuana.
Okay. Free markets.
Pro.
Gun rights.
Pro.
Money going toward global warming efforts or to stopping global warming efforts.
Against, like, heavy. Like,
Capital punishment.
pro.
Minimum wage. Oh, raising the minimum wage.
I'm okay. I'm gonna say against just because, like, I again, like, I'm against the federal government constantly fluctuating minimum wage. Like, I feel like that should be on a state by state basis. Also,
Israel and the U.S.'s relationship.
I'm okay. I'm going to this is a complicated one. I'm gonna say against just because I understand that our relationship with Israel is important. I value Israel as an ally. However, I think that there is a lot of money that is going to our relationship with Israel that I don't think necessarily needs to be put as a priority over there. Again, that's just me being a nationalist. Like, I feel like that money would be better spent in investing into our own people. That's it.
Okay. The Electoral College.
Oh, I'm pro Electoral College. Yep.
Elimination of student loans.
I'm against that.
Open borders.
Heavy against. Heavy against.
Universal health care. Also
heavily against.
And this one is super controversial. Carol Baskins.
Oh, I'm so like against Carol Baskin. I'm like anti-Carol Baskin.
And then the last one is puppies.
And I'm super pro puppies. Like, I don't think you could find a person that was more pro puppy than me. I love puppies. I love dogs over cats any day.
Okay, well, that wraps up the conservative quadrant of the series. Thank you so much, Chicago. Oh, actually, sorry, wait. Can you give another make it known statement? It could have something to do with conservatism or not. It doesn't matter. But I would like a make it known statement, please.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Make it known statement. I guess with the atmosphere that's going on right now with like race again in the country, like I just want to say that like Black people have always been a part of this country. We were integral in the building and preserving of the values of this country, and we shouldn't turn our backs on this country as a whole in our role in this country just because a few bad things happen, you know. So just we're Americans too. It's all right. It's okay. It's okay to identify as just being an American and being pro this country, even in the face of stuff that's beyond our control, really. So, yeah.
That was good. And I want to add, just to add, we are Americans and this is our country, so let's make if we don't like something about our country, we can make the difference. We can change it. That's what's so great about America. And this whole month that this is premiering, it's the America month, and like that's what's so great about it. Like, it's our country, we can change it, we can make that difference. So yeah. Thank you so much again, Shekinah. I really, 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 really appreciate you coming on. This was a really good episode.
Sure, yeah.
Very, very saucy. But I like that. I like that, and I really appreciate that. Thanks everyone so much for listening. You will also hear from 3 other quadrants in this 4 quadrants series, and the whole point is for you to make up your decision on what you fully believe. I really hope I did a decent job of not showing my opinion too much in this episode, but the whole purpose is for you to make a decision, for you to decide how you feel. And if you have any questions or anything like that, definitely feel free to reach out. And if you want to ask Shekinah anything, I can give her your question. I won't give you her information, not right now at least. So you can ask me and I'll relay it over to her or anything like that. Thanks everyone so much for listening, and you will hear me again the next Monday. Bye.
See ya.
If Make It Known with Mal is truly providing you with valuable content, consider becoming a Patreon. You can become a Patreon for as low as $3 a month. This podcast isn't just for me, it's for us, all of us. Your contribution will help the podcast continue to improve and reach everyone that needs to hear this. Also, consider ordering some really cute merch. We have things from stickers to t-shirts, and they're all available at www.makeitknownwithmal.com. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for listening to Make It Known with Mal. I hope you enjoyed and learned something new. Make It Known with Mal is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, Overcast, PocketCasts, RadioPublic, and iHeartRadio. So if this was a beneficial episode for you, wherever you're listening, make sure you subscribe, rate, review, and share with your friends. If you take a picture listening, make sure you tag Make It Known with Mal on Instagram, and I'll repost it. I'm currently accepting applications for sponsors. Also, if you're receiving value from this podcast, please consider becoming a Patreon for as low as $3 a month. Find out more on my website, www.makeithknownwithmal.com. You can also find merch and a list of all the freebies that are available. Thanks again for listening, and have a good rest of your day. Also, ask yourself, if the whole world was listening, what would you say? Don't forget to make it known.